I haven't told anyone this, not even my therapist. Not really. Not all of it. I'm Claire. I'm 38, a social worker, and I'm married to a man named Thomas. We've been together 10 years. 8 of them married. And lately, I've been walking around my own life like a woman wearing shoes that don't fit anymore. Tied in all the wrong places. Still technically wearable. Still familiar. But not mine. It didn't used to be like this. When Thomas and I first met, we were fire and comfort rolled into one. He was older, steady, grounded, confident. He made me feel protected. Desired. I was drawn to that kind of masculine calm, especially after a chaotic first marriage with a man who couldn't decide what he wanted. With Thomas, everything felt clear. Easy. Even sexy, in that adult way that doesn't scream "look at me," but simmers underneath, an arm around my waist during dinner parties, the soft press of his lips on my neck as I made coffee. We had this quiet intimacy. Like we spoke a language only we knew. And then, life kept happening. His son, Aiden, moved in with us when he was 16. It was only supposed to be temporary, until his mom got her shit together. That was 4 years ago. Aiden was polite. Closed off. I never tried to mother him. Just to be kind. Make space. We coexisted. But somewhere along the way, that house, our house, started to shift. I don't know when exactly I began to feel invisible in it. Maybe it was when Thomas started spending more time with Aiden, just the two of them, always out fixing the garage or watching baseball. Or maybe it was when I'd walk into a room, and they'd both fall quiet, like I'd interrupted something that didn't include me. Thomas would tell me I was imagining it. That I was being sensitive. And maybe I was. But it's hard not to feel like you're slowly dissolving when the person who used to trace your collarbone with their fingers now barely looks up when you walk in the room. Even our affection has changed. The other night, I leaned into him on the couch. I wrapped my arm through his. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean in either. It felt like cuddling a piece of furniture. Sometimes he kisses me, like out of habit. A goodbye on the forehead that lands with no breath behind it. And sometimes, when he hugs me, it's rougher than it needs to be. Not violent, but firm. Controlling. Like I'm a responsibility, not a desire. I've tried. I've worn that silk robe he used to like. I've run my fingers along his shoulder at night. But when he does respond, it's like he's trying to prove a point, not make love. Like he's trying to shut me up with his body. So I stopped asking. I spend more time at work. Stay later. I read more books than I used to. I tell myself I'm just tired. But the truth is, I'm lonely. And loneliness inside a marriage is so much worse than being alone. I think the moment everything changed, really changed, was about 6 months ago. Thomas and I were fighting again. Something stupid. I don't even remember what. And Aiden walked in. 20 now, tall, broader than before. His voice deeper. He didn't raise it, but there was something in his tone that made both of us freeze. He looked directly at Thomas and said, "You don't get to treat her like that." And then he looked at me. Just looked. Steady. Long enough to make my throat catch. Thomas barked something back, I can't remember what, but Aiden didn't flinch. He said, "I'm not a boy anymore," and walked out. It was the first time I noticed the way he looked at me wasn't familial. It should have scared me. But it didn't. It felt like someone had seen me. Really seen me. And that terrified me more than anything. Because in that split second, I realized what I hadn't been willing to admit for months, something between Thomas and me had gone quiet. And someone else, unexpected, inappropriate, impossible, had heard the silence. Thomas isn't a bad man. I need to say that, even now. Because it's easier to grieve someone when you can turn them into a villain. But he's not. He's a complicated man, raised in a household where men were doers, not feelers. Where love was shown through action, not words. He's a firefighter. And I used to love that about him. There's a quiet nobility in the way he wakes up at 3 a.m. to respond to alarms that most of us sleep through. He's brave. Selfless. The kind of man you'd trust in a crisis. But sometimes, I think he confuses adrenaline with connection. Like if he can hold a hose steady in a burning building, he should know how to hold me in bed. Last Tuesday was our anniversary, 8 years married. I took the day off work, made his favorite pasta from scratch, lit candles, even wore that same burgundy dress I wore on our second date. The one with the slit up the side that used to drive him wild. He didn't notice. Not the dress. Not the candles. Not even the wine I splurged on from that vineyard we visited in Sonoma. He came in late. Covered in soot. Smelled like smoke and ash. I didn't say anything at first. I understood. Emergencies don't schedule themselves. But when he dropped his gear and walked straight to the shower without a word, not even a look, I cracked. When he came out, towel around his waist, he tried to kiss me. I pulled away. He blinked, confused. "What's wrong with you?" And I hated how quickly the words hit me like a slap. "I made dinner," I said, quietly. I waited. "Claire, I was saving a goddamn life." "I know," I said. "But this was supposed to matter too." That's always the tension between us. He shows love by doing. I need it spoken. Held. Understood. And he always reaches for my body before he reaches for my mind. Later that night, after a silent dinner and 2 glasses of wine, he came up behind me in the kitchen. Wrapped his arms around my waist. Pressed his lips to the back of my neck. I froze. He whispered, "I'm sorry, baby." But it was the kind of sorry that's meant to smooth things over, not fix them. I turned around, looked him in the eye, and said, "I need to feel like I matter to you when nothing's on fire." He exhaled hard and muttered something about how he can never win with me. He went to bed. I stayed downstairs and reread a book I didn't care about. That night, in bed, he reached for me again. Slid his hand under my shirt, cupped my breast. It wasn't rough, but it wasn't tender either. I turned onto my side. "I'm tired," I whispered. He didn't say anything. Didn't ask what I meant. Just rolled onto his back and stared at the ceiling like I'd taken something from him. The next morning, Aiden was in the kitchen making coffee when I came down. He was shirtless, wearing those low-slung gray sweatpants, his dark hair still wet from a shower. He looked up, smiled softly, and said, "Morning." And maybe it was nothing. Maybe I imagined the flicker of concern in his eyes when he noticed the shadows under mine. But as I reached for a mug, our fingers brushed, and something unspoken passed between us. Something that made my stomach twist. He handed me the mug like it was nothing. Like he hadn't just read me better in 5 seconds than my husband had in 5 months. And for one insane second, I wanted to stay there in that moment. Just to feel noticed. It's a Saturday morning, and the sun's spilling into the bedroom in soft golden streaks. Thomas is beside me, still in that half-asleep haze, smelling like sleep and soap. I used to love these mornings. No alarms. No calls. Just his hand on my thigh, slow and steady, the kind of touch that says I want you, but I'm not rushing you. But now, even as his hand starts to move upward, brushing the edge of my underwear, I freeze. I pretend to be asleep. He doesn't stop. "Claire," he murmurs, his voice low, gravelly. "You awake?" I don't answer. He kisses my shoulder. The warm part where my tank top slid down during the night. I know this is him trying. This is supposed to be sweet. Romantic. And yet, all I can think is God, I'm tired. And I don't mean physically. I mean tired of this routine. Of the way his affection only shows up when my body's horizontal. I shift away, just slightly. Barely an inch. But it's enough. He sighs, frustrated. Seriously? I keep my voice even. I didn't sleep well. He sits up now, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. It's always something. My stomach tightens. What's that supposed to mean? Thomas pulls on a t-shirt, not looking at me. Nothing. No, say it. He shrugs. I try, Claire. I reach for you. I kiss you. I touch you. And you act like I'm assaulting you. I sit up now too, pulling the blanket around me like armor. It's not what you do. It's when you do it. He turns, confused. What? You show up for the sex, I say quietly. But where are you the rest of the time? Silence. A long one. He scoffs. Unbelievable. Then he grabs his keys off the dresser and heads downstairs without another word. I sit there for a full 5 minutes, blanket still wrapped around me, like I'm bracing for some invisible cold. Later that afternoon, I try to fix things in the smallest way I can. I bring him a cup of coffee while he's working in the garage. He's bent over the workbench, replacing something in the toolbox Aiden borrowed. Hey, I say softly. He looks up. His face is tight. Not angry, just worn. I'm sorry, I offer. This morning. I wasn't trying to reject you. He nods once. I know. But the look in his eyes says he doesn't. Not really. Then, before I can say more, he smirks a little, like flipping a switch, and gives me this familiar, teasing smack on the ass. It's light. Playful. Like it used to be. But it makes my entire body recoil. I fake a laugh. Okay, caveman. He grins. There's that smile I miss. I force it a little longer. Just enough to get through it. Because what am I supposed to say? That touch feels more like a claim than a caress? That night, he tries again. He kisses me in the kitchen while I'm rinsing lettuce. Pulls me in close. His lips find my neck. It should be intimate. It should light a fuse. Instead, I feel like I'm being managed. Like this is another task he's checking off. My hands are wet. I don't kiss back. And still, he keeps going. Finally, I press my palm gently to his chest. Can we not? He steps back. Frustrated, again. What is going on with you lately? I swallow hard. I don't know. But I do. I dry my hands on the towel and walk to the other side of the kitchen. Because I do want him. But I don't feel safe in his touch anymore. Not emotionally. Not deeply. And somewhere inside, the voice I keep ignoring starts to scream. Why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened at the dinner table. A stupid, ordinary Wednesday. Thomas had actually come home on time, which was rare. He'd even picked up dinner from that Thai place I liked. The food was warm, the lights dim, and he was trying. I could see it in the way he poured the wine without asking. In how he asked about my day before launching into his. Aiden wasn't home. He'd started working late shifts at the local gym. Said he liked the quiet at night. I wasn't sure I believed him. Thomas reached across the table, placing his hand on mine. You've been off lately, he said gently. Can we talk about it? I looked at our hands. his rough palm over mine. I didn't move. I don't know how to explain it, I admitted. Just try, he said. I'm here, Claire. And something in me, something small and tired and hungry, believed him. I took a breath. I feel like I don't exist to you unless you want something from me. Sex, mostly. Or silence. Or convenience. He blinked. I'm not trying to attack you, I continued, my voice shaking. I need more. More presence. More seeing. I need to feel like a person again. Thomas frowned. That's not fair. I work my ass off for us. I pick up dinner. I come home when I can. You want me to light a damn candle every time I touch you? No, I said, louder than I meant to. I want to not feel like your wife is some vending machine for validation. He stared. Where the hell is this coming from? I was trembling now. Do you even remember our anniversary? I was at a fire, Claire. And every other day since? Every other night where I'm invisible unless I flinch when you grab me? Silence. I stood, pushing back my chair. My hands were shaking. My chest felt too tight. And then, stupidly, I started to cry. Not polite tears. Not the kind you wipe quickly and apologize for. This was full-body sobbing. Ugly and raw and out of nowhere. Thomas stood too, coming toward me. Hey, come here. I didn't mean, don't touch me, I said, choking on it. He froze. And then he did what he always does when emotion gets big, he shut down. Okay, he said. His voice flat. I'm going for a drive. I watched him grab his jacket. Watched the front door close behind him. And then I was alone. Again. I sank to the kitchen floor. The tile was cold against my legs, grounding in a way I didn't expect. And all I could think about was that night. That night 6 months ago when Thomas and I were fighting and Aiden stepped in. How steady he'd looked. How sure. I'm not a boy anymore, he'd said. And I remember how it landed in me. Not as a warning. Not as a threat. But as a recognition. That moment had become a fracture. A splinter in the skin of my marriage. I hadn't known it then, but I see it now. Because since then, I've started noticing him, Aiden, in ways I shouldn't. The way his voice had deepened over the past year. The way he listens when I speak, with an attention that feels dangerous. I hate myself for it. I hate that the soft comfort of being seen has made me crave more. And I hate that Thomas's absence has turned me into a woman who cries on the kitchen floor over pad thai. I pulled my knees up to my chest and rested my forehead there. All of this, the shouting, the tears, the shutting down, it wasn't about just one night. It wasn't even about Aiden. It was about years of being half heard, half touched, half loved. And the worst part was, I didn't even know if I wanted Thomas back anymore. I just wanted to feel like me again. And right now, I didn't know who that was. The days that followed were quiet in that unbearable way only shared spaces can be. We still lived in the same house, still brushed our teeth in the same bathroom, still passed each other in the hallway. But it felt like we were both ghosts, haunting different memories of what our marriage used to be. Thomas stopped trying. That's how I knew I'd really hurt him. He didn't bring me coffee in the mornings anymore. Didn't comment when I wore lipstick or curled my hair. Didn't even ask where I went when I stayed late at work 3 nights in a row. He wasn't cruel. Just absent. And I missed him. God, I missed him. Not just the version of him from 10 years ago, the man who kissed the inside of my wrist while we slow danced barefoot in the kitchen. I missed this version too, the one who fell asleep on the couch with the remote on his chest, The one who always complained about the laundry detergent being too floury. The man who once made me feel like I was safe simply by standing in the same room. Now he barely looked at me. And when he did, his eyes were tired. Not angry. Not bitter. Just tired. One evening, I found him in the garage, sitting on the bench beside his work table, beer in hand, staring at nothing. He didn't hear me come in. And for a moment, I just watched him. His shoulders were hunched. His fingers tapped rhythmically against the bottle. His face looked older somehow, more worn than I remembered. I realized then that I'd been so wrapped in my own ache that I hadn't really seen his. He wasn't some emotionally stunted cliché. He was a man trying, failing, and slowly breaking because he didn't know how to fix what we'd lost. And that realization brought a sharp wave of guilt. We'd both gotten lost. And I wasn't sure either of us had the map anymore. That night, in bed, I almost reached for him. Almost turned toward him and whispered, "Let's start again." But I didn't. Because I didn't know what I wanted. Instead, I lay there in the dark, listening to the rise and fall of his breath, and wondered when silence had become our only language. A week later, we tried to act normal. We went to the grocery store together. Picked up salad kits and frozen pizza like nothing was wrong. We even laughed once, some stupid joke about a cashier's name tag being upside down. And for half a second, I felt hope crack through the numbness. But then I watched him reach for my hand in the parking lot. And I flinched. Not visibly. Not enough for him to notice. But inside, something locked up. He didn't take my hand after that. And I realized something awful: we had grown so far apart, I didn't even know how to want him anymore. I started sitting in the backyard more. Just me, a book, and a blanket. Watching the trees shift, letting the air move through me like maybe it could carry something out. Aiden would sometimes pass by the sliding door, give me a small wave. Nothing inappropriate. But enough to remind me, someone still saw me. I hated that. And I craved it. Tonight, Thomas is asleep upstairs. I'm on the couch again, trying to feel something. And I keep asking myself, is wanting this marriage to work the same thing as wanting him back? Because if I'm honest, I don't know. And I think the hardest thing in the world is realizing that maybe love isn't enough to find your way back. Still, tomorrow morning, I'll either reach for his hand again. Or I'll pack a small bag and leave. I haven't decided yet. But I will. The morning I made the decision, it wasn't dramatic. No thunderstorm. No slammed doors. Just eggs on the stove, the smell of burnt toast, and Thomas standing across the kitchen in his undershirt, staring blankly into his coffee. I'd slept on the couch again. He hadn't asked why. Maybe he knew. Maybe he was just too tired to ask anymore. I put the pan down, wiped my hands on a dish towel, and spoke. We can't keep doing this. He didn't look at me. Not right away. Just nodded slowly. Yeah. I know. A silence stretched between us. One of those long, aching ones that say everything neither of us could voice. When he finally met my eyes, his were red-rimmed. I don't know how to get back to you. I swallowed. I don't know if I want you to. He blinked, but didn't flinch. There was no anger in his face. No defense. Just resignation. And something like relief. We sat at the table without touching. The air was heavy, full of things we should have said months ago. I do love you, Claire, he said softly. But I think we wore it out. I nodded. Me too. No one cried. No screaming. Just two people finally admitting that love, alone, hadn't been enough. He stood, walked around the table, and pulled me gently into his arms. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even sad. It just was. I let myself lean into his chest for a moment. Felt the familiar weight of his arms around me. And for one brief second, I remembered what it felt like to feel safe here. He kissed my forehead, soft and tired. Whatever happens next, I hope you find what you're missing. That was the end. Or maybe it had ended long before, and this was just the moment we both let go. That night, he slept on the couch. No one asked anyone to. It just felt right. And in the quiet of the bedroom, I lay in bed alone, finally alone, and didn't feel lost. Not exactly. Because sometimes rupture is the only kind of rebuilding we get. If you had asked me a year ago what I wanted, I would have said something vague, like peace. Or happiness. Or to not feel so damn tired all the time. Now? I think what I really wanted was to be seen. Not as a wife. Or a caretaker. Or a woman who keeps the laundry moving and the fridge full and the mood in the house even. But as a whole person. With layers. With hunger. With fears that don't always make sense. I thought love would be the thing that protected me from loneliness. But I've learned that even inside love, you can feel more alone than you ever imagined. Especially when the person lying beside you stops asking what your silences mean. Thomas and I ended quietly. No big fight. No betrayal. Just this slow realization that the glue had dried up, and the cracks had stopped being reparable. We tried. I want to say that clearly, we tried. With therapy, with talks, with dinners that felt like interviews. But trying isn't the same as changing. And you can't rebuild something if the foundation isn't right anymore. The hardest part? He didn't stop loving me. And I didn't stop caring about him. But sometimes, love just runs out of road. And in the middle of all that stillness, something unexpected happened. Aiden came home one night and found me sitting on the porch. It had been weeks since Thomas moved into his sister's spare room. The house felt too quiet, like it was still holding its breath. I remember the way Aiden looked at me, not with pity, not with lust, not even concern. Just a steady, unflinching kind of presence. He sat next to me without asking. And after a few minutes, he said, "You look lighter." I didn't answer. Because he was right. And I didn't know how to feel about that. We sat there for a while. No touching. No lines crossed. And maybe for the first time, I stopped trying to figure out what he meant when he looked at me like that. Maybe he did see me. Maybe he wanted more. But what I needed wasn't another man to validate my worth. What I needed was to remember I existed before I became someone's something. So no, I didn't sleep with Aiden. I didn't lean into that gaze or test how far it would go. Because part of becoming whole again meant learning how to sit inside discomfort without letting it define me. Desire is easy. What's hard is learning how to ask for what you want before the silence sets in. What's hard is knowing when something is tender, and when it's simply familiar. What I've learned is this: sex can be a stand-in for love. But it's not a substitute. And sometimes the most painful thing isn't losing someone, it's realizing you lost yourself slowly while they were right there beside you. I've started sleeping with the windows open again. Letting the air in. Letting myself take up space. I'm learning how to be alone without being lonely. How to miss someone without making it a reason to go back. And I don't know what comes next. Maybe I'll fall in love again. Maybe I won't. But either way, I'll ask for what I need. And I won't apologize for needing it. That, more than anything, is what I've learned: being seen isn't about someone else's gaze. It's about looking at yourself and choosing to stay.